Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most incredible underdog stories of World War II. We're going to explore how sheer, undeniable bravery against completely overwhelming odds literally changed the course of history. This is the epic Battle of Leyte Gulf.
Now, to really wrap your head around the mind-blowing scale of this fight, I want you to imagine an ocean just completely filled with steel. We're talking about roughly 300 Allied ships squaring off against around 70 Imperial Japanese ships. So you add that all up, and that's nearly 370 warships in one area. To this day, it remains the absolute largest naval battle in human history.
Here's our battle plan for today's Explainer. First, the biggest battle ever. Second, rival teams and plans. Third, the first big clashes. Fourth, falling for the trap. Fifth, a real David versus Goliath situation. And finally, the aftermath and key learnings. Section 1. The biggest battle ever. Setting the stage in October 1944. So, it's October 1944. Allied forces, led by General Douglas MacArthur, had just landed on Leyte in the Philippines. Their goal? Cut off Japan from some absolutely vital supply lines. But to really grasp the stakes here, you have to look at the sheer human scale of this engagement. You know, we aren't just talking about floating pieces of metal. We're looking at well over 200,000 sailors locked into this massive theater. The Allies brought roughly 143,000 men to the fight, and they're facing off against 73,000 Japanese sailors. It's just staggering.
Section 2. Rival teams and plans. The U.S. Navy versus the Imperial Japanese Navy. Let's meet our rival commanders. On one side, you've got the Allied fleets, led by Admirals Halsey and Kinkaid. They were confidently advancing, aiming to secure the Philippines and really tighten the net around Japan. On the flip side, the Imperial Japanese Navy, led by Admirals Kurita and Ozawa, absolutely knew that if the Philippines fell, their entire war effort would be completely strangled. So they were making a desperate, all-or-nothing final stand. To stop this Allied advance, the Japanese devised Operation Shō-Gō. And guys, this was a brilliant and incredibly sneaky three-step trap. Step 1. Admiral Ozawa sails his aircraft carriers north. But here's the trick. They were basically empty. They were just acting as a giant decoy to lure Admiral Halsey's powerful Third Fleet away. Step 2, while Halsey is off chasing those ghost carriers, Admiral Kurita would sneak his massive battleships right through the completely unguarded San Bernardino Strait. And finally, Step 3, crush those vulnerable American landing beaches at Leyte.
Section 3. The first big clashes. Trading heavy blows.
But, as they always say, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Well before the main event even kicked off, these two rivals were already engaging in some incredibly chaotic early brawls. The momentum was violently swinging back and forth. First, over in the Palawan Passage, U.S. submarines ambushed Admiral Kurita's fleet. They sank 2 heavy cruisers and actually forced Kurita to swim for his own life. Then, in the Sibuyan Sea, American carrier planes just relentlessly bombed the Japanese fleet, eventually sinking the absolute pride of the Japanese Navy. Meanwhile, down south in the Shō-Gō Strait, old American battleships, and get this, many of these were literally resurrected from the mud of Pearl Harbor, sprung a perfect nighttime trap. They crossed the T and just completely wiped out a southern Japanese force.
Now, to really put this into perspective, we need to talk about exactly what the Americans were sinking in the Sibuyan Sea. The Japanese were utilizing these super battleships, specifically the Musashi and her sister ship, the Yamato. I mean, these things were essentially floating mountains. They weighed over 70,000 tons and fired these massive 18.1-inch shells. It was just a behemoth. In fact, it took an unbelievable 19 torpedoes and 17 bombs to finally send the Musashi to the bottom.
Section 4. Falling for the trap. A huge miscommunication.
So, with one super battleship down and a whole southern force wiped out, the U.S. definitely seemed to be winning, right? Well, not quite, because Admiral Halsey completely fell for the decoy trick. Believing the Japanese center force was retreating, he took his massive Third Fleet north to chase Ozawa's empty carriers. And here's the kicker. He didn't clearly tell Kinkaid's 7th Fleet that he was taking all his ships with him. This led directly to one of the most infamous miscommunications in military history. Admiral Nimitz, all the way over in Hawaii, sends a message asking, "Where is Task Force 34? Those were the battleships that were supposed to be guarding the strait. But because of some extra, completely random decoding padding that read, "The World Wonders," Halsey took the message as this massive sarcastic insult. He literally threw his cap on the deck in a rage, completely unaware that he had left the back door to the landing beaches completely wide open.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. With Halsey totally gone, Admiral Kurita turns his center force right around. sails straight through the now unguarded San Bernardino Strait in the dead of night, and pops out the very next morning, right off the coast of Samar. This meant an absolutely terrifying surprise was waiting for the tiny, lightly armed American escort ships that were left behind to protect the landing forces.
Section 5. David versus Goliath, the unbelievable stand of Taffy 3. We are now at the morning of October 25th, reaching the true climax of our story off the coast of Samar. A tiny American task unit using the radio call sign Taffy 3 suddenly spotted the unmistakable towering pagoda masts of the Imperial Japanese Navy's most powerful battleships. And guys, this brilliantly illustrates the mismatch. Taffy 3 was just a group of slow, unarmed escort carriers. They actually nicknamed them Jeep carriers, protected by a handful of tiny destroyers and even smaller destroyer escorts with little 5-inch guns. And bearing down on them? Kurita Center Force, 4 massive, heavily armored battleships, including the legendary Yamato itself, plus 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and 11 destroyers.
On paper, Taffy 3 was supposed to run. They had no business being in a fight like this, but instead of just fleeing, incredibly brave leaders took matters into their own hands. Captain Ernest Evans of the tiny destroyer USS Johnston didn't even wait for orders. He gets on the radio and broadcasts to his crew, "Prepare to attack major portion of the Japanese fleet." And with that single sentence, he ordered his unarmed, outgunned ship to charge headfirst, completely alone, directly into the teeth of this giant enemy armada, just to buy those escort carriers a little more time to escape.
Let's take a look at the timeline and see how this rapidly devolved into absolute chaos. Around 7 a.m., the Johnston, now followed by the Howell, the Heermann, and the incredibly tiny destroyer escort Samuel B. Roberts, all charged in. They are literally dodging massive geysers of water exploding from incoming battleship shells. They're firing their torpedoes, shooting their little 5-inch guns right into the superstructures of these giant heavy cruisers. And meanwhile, up above them, American pilots are launching from the escort carriers, many without even having the proper weapons loaded. When they ran out of bullets, they just kept making dry runs, basically playing chicken, diving at the Japanese ships just to distract them. I mean, one pilot even threw a clipboard and an empty Coke bottle at a Japanese ship. It's wild. The sheer ferocity of this underdog attack completely confused Admiral Kurita. He genuinely believed he was facing a massive fleet, so at 9:11 a.m., he miraculously ordered his powerful ships to turn around and retreat.
Section 6. Aftermath and Key Learnings. The tides of history turn.
Let's look at the final score here. That fierce, desperate stand by Taffy 3 absolutely saved the invasion forces. Despite the terrifying odds at Samar and the deeply tragic losses taken by those brave crews, the overall Battle of Leyte Gulf ended up being a massive, decisive victory for the Allies. Across all the different engagements, the Allies lost 6 ships and roughly 3,000 men. But the Empire of Japan, they lost an astonishing 26 ships. We're talking 3 battleships and 4 carriers, along with 12,000 sailors. The Imperial Japanese Navy was permanently crippled that day. They would literally never again sail as a major offensive force.
So what are the big takeaways you should remember from this explainer? First off, teamwork and clear communication are absolutely critical. I mean, Halsey and Kincaid's failure to just talk to each other almost caused a historic disaster. Second, a clever trap, like Ozawa's empty decoy carriers, can temporarily outsmart even the very best leaders. But most importantly, incredible, extreme courage can overcome seemingly impossible odds. Those tin can sailors of Taffy 3 proved once and for all that fighting spirit matters just as much as the thickness of your armor.
And I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. We so often look at history as just a series of inevitable events driven by massive, unstoppable forces. But at Leyte Gulf, the individual decisions of brave people, like Ernest Evans deciding to charge a battleship with a tiny destroyer, literally saved thousands of lives and completely altered the course of a global war. So when you face an overwhelming challenge in your own life, how will your courage shape the future? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.